Hi everyone, I'm very excited to be here with you today. I have in front of me María Alviz Hernando, or favorite tarotist from Spain. And I'm here with her today because she's starting a new class, which starts on Sunday, if I'm right.
Yeah.
Sunday 7. Yes, 7.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm like very bad with numbers. On a topic that I personally find very, very interesting, which is the Grand Tableau. And I came to know your work about that topic because you wrote this book, which I found very, very fascinating, which I've basically read, months and months ago, but like it had been like a very interesting tool where, like people I sometimes I think like, am I gonna ever discover new ways of reading cards? I've worked with round table before, but like your approach is so pragmatic and if I want to say efficient that it really transformed my like loosey goosey in way of like doing that work with the tableau. And so, as a way to basically introduce the class, I thought I was going to be, asking you a couple of questions just so people can discover your work, who you are, why you're great, why, why I think
Well,
you're
why
gonna
I'm
be
great might be a bit too much, but I'll try.
yeah, I mean, it's just, I believe it's, stop it, Maria, stop it. So Maria, who are you? And
Oh my.
what's your tarot journey? Like, how did you started reading cards, and what's your what? How? Yes, tell us.
Oh, well, almost, I would say accidentally, if these things can ever happen accidentally, which probably they don't. I was always the weird kid in high school, the your classic bullying, no friends, having weird interests and all that stuff. So I always had friends that were much older than me.
Hmm.
And through one of those friends, I learned about tarot because his partner at the time used to read cards. And since I had my weird interests from early on, I was intrigued, let's say,
Hmm.
and I was scared too. Probably, a bit of still Catholic guilt.
I know.
you
I
know
mean,
how
I'm
it is.
French. We're Catholic.
Yeah, right. So you know what it's like, right? So I was intrigued, but I was also like, will I unleash doom and gloom if I do this? But I saw my friend, I saw his partner, they were doing fine, so I gave it a go, and I bought a tarot deck. I was 14 by then, with money I got for my birthday. So I more or less know the date in which I started just because of that detail, and. I just began to play around with major arcana only because that was what this girl read and what I had been told that I had to read with the booklet and with the confidence that comes from having an underdeveloped prefrontal globe. No, right? So I was just, I had absolutely no fear, and I began to read for everyone who would let me. Lobe, not globe, anyway. And I started from, then I usually would read for friends that had no interest, or people I knew, or friends of my family, or stuff like that. And over time, I began to read on chats because the IRC, I don't know if the IRC is a thing in France, probably not. It was like
Yeah,
a,
you have to say it's the very early chat rooms.
yes, exactly, the very early
I
chat rooms.
remember those. Yes, yes, yes.
Yes, yes. So there was one that was about tarot, and
Mm,
I would do readings for people in there, and
that's
it
cool.
grew from there. And initially, it was just this weird thing that I did, but then it began to get out of hand, and I started. to do this professionally with a then friend who introduced me to the idea of tableau reading, even though that was not the name.
Mhm.
And my first introduction to it was this spread, the one that appears in the book cover, that is the Major Arcana tableau, which is pulling, well, this one actually has the entire deck, I mean, the whole deck, not the Major Arcana, but it consisted basically on pulling 7 rows of 7 with one in the end, and threading a story. And I became captivated by this idea of threading the cards instead of reading them positionally. And then he told me a version of what would be my 9 card tableau, which became my flagship, so to speak. And that was a spread with 4 rows of 3.
Mhm.
However, I found that reading 4 rows of 3 didn't flow the same way, because if I wanted to do a diagonal, for instance, there was always a row that was out, and it did not feel as interwoven for me. So I decided to take out one of those rows. Then I learned that Lenormand existed, and I saw the 9 card box, and I also began to apply those techniques. I then realized later on that tableau reading was a cartomantic technique, not just exclusive of Lenormand, but something that one could do. And, it led me to having my tableau called, as I call it, and writing Tarot Tableau Revolution.
Mhm. This is great. I mean, it's just like I really enjoyed the book. And I think that what I really love about your approach is like, well, I mean, I was not, how do you call that? I was not a novice in Tableau, but you were just, like I've done Tableau for on my own, but like I learned so much because like you just brought us back to the really basic stuff, which for me is always good to be reminded of because, like it's just, it's interesting to kind of rework on the structure. And then you present so many different ways of actually working with that. Especially, I thought it was very creative the way you really push people to articulate stories. Where like like working with tableau is hard. Like it's almost like doing I don't know trapeze without the safety net. Like there is so. Anyway, would you tell us a little bit about because I think this is basically how I met you at the first place. You are involved with the World Tarot Association, which is
Yeah, the World
very,
Religion Association.
yeah, the World Divination, sorry, the
Yeah.
World Divination Association, which is such a fascinating platform of like like a congress of different practitioners. Tell us a little about this and maybe like your involvement in this because I know that for example you're like a tarot expert, but you're worked with like all sorts of different other systems, including the Beline and.
Yes, yes, I work with tarot, with Baleen, with Lenormand, and I am just fascinated by oracles in general, and I believe they have so much more potential than people give them credit for.
Mm,
So that is something that I really like, because I am very much into contextual
mm,
reading, which is a big part of the class too. And I believe that's something that is often overlooked in a way, is that we are not reading in a vacuum. We are reading in the context of a question, in the context of the concern that someone comes to us with.
mm,
And sometimes, if we don't keep that question or that concern at the forefront, it can be easy to interpret cards in ways that are more ample
mm,
and not as relevant to the situation, which is something that with oracles in particular can happen a lot if we don't work on contextualizing them.
yeah.
So that is something that I really like doing.
Yeah.
So you asked me something else?
I asked
I
you about
forgot.
the World Divination
Oh, yeah.
Association. Sorry, I'm
I
just,
was like,
I'm
yeah,
just,
I'm rambling already. You asked me something, but whatever. Yes, and the World Divination Association is a platform in which, well, people can come close to a whole lot of systems, from tarot to runes to Lenormand Keeper. There are many activities, there are many classes. I have been working with the World Divination Association as a director for a number of years. Now I'm not in that role, but it is still a place that offers so much content, great environment, a lot of people who are very helpful
mm,
to others, to want to support others in their journey to practice, lots of classes, conferences. So it is a wonderful place to find like-minded peers, to go see conferences online, which is great because you can do it in your sofa and not traveling. Not travel, and it is a great place to get access to a lot of different systems. So what's not to like, right?
yeah, well, obviously, that's true. What's not to like?
What's not to
Uh,
like?
what's not to like? So the part of it, the reason I was asking you this question about the different type of divination systems is because you're really versatile, and you talk about it a little bit in the book. You like the Grand Tableau is something you can do with absolutely every type of system. You can do it with the
Yeah.
tarot, with the new normal. Can you tell us maybe a little bit about like just a very quick um like just think about the history maybe of that spread, and then how you got to experiment with it with different system, and maybe even like is there like is are the different system, are some system, I don't know, like weirder approach with the Grand Tableau system?
All right. So about the history, I always say I'm not a tarot historian, and I will not just pull something out of my ass for the sake of answering. But what I know about the tableau is that there is evidence of it being used as far evidentially, of course, right, the first time something is recorded is not necessarily the first time it happens,
Hmm.
but evidentially I would say that as far as the early 18th century, and there are some paintings in which one can see that this kind of disposition is used, usually with playing cards, but you can also see it with different cards, I mean, with different card systems.
Hmm.
And about the Tableau and using it with different systems, I use it even with, random Oracle decks. Sometimes not everything is, there are things that are not feasible depending on the type of system that you are using. If you are using a numbered system, you can do a grand tableau because you can use houses, because there is a numbered system, right, that allows you to do that. If it is not numbered, it becomes more complicated, but you can always do a 9-card tableau with anything that you are using, and the principles still apply. The principles of directionality, for instance, if you are using playing cards, aside from the court cards, there's not a lot of directionality that you can read. But with any other system that has some degree of directionality, as it happens with Lenormand, even though it is more of a symbolic deck, but still there are some cards that have a directionality component and such. It allows you to use some of those techniques. And the thing about Tableau is that it is a very layered system, meaning that there are different passes, so to speak, through the interpretation that we are doing. And this allows us to extract way more information than simply, the cards. This card means this, next thing.
Yeah.
We are looking at the interaction. We can use the elemental level, which is something that works very well with tarot, because tarot has four suits plus the major arcana. So that is a good layer to use. Lenormand doesn't have those, but for instance, with the Oracle Boleyn, we have the planetary associations that work similarly to how an elemental layer in tarot would work. So you can translate some of those. There are other systems that lose a layer but might gain another. So in general, you don't have to do everything that you could possibly do in every spread, right? So in general, it is easy to translate it to some degree to whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah. This is so fascinating. My last
Yes,
question. Sorry, sorry.
it's a
My
tableau cult.
Well, yeah, no, but it's just the thing is that, like I personally I enjoy really working with tableau, even if it's a 9 card tableau, because you can keep it, for like a week on your table and then just like every day come back to it. And there is like new layers that you can actually find. It's just such a
Mm-hmm.
rich way to practice. My last question for you is this. Who do you think this class is for? What type of practitioner? Like what is who is it for?
How is it for? Well, ideally, right, it doesn't mean that it is like the only people that it is for.
Yeah,
Ideally, this would be for someone that to some degree has an understanding of tarot cards
yeah,
already.
yeah,
But I believe that tableau is great for people who feel that they are intermediate readers,
yeah,
because that there are a lot of people that call themselves an intermediate reader, because it's like they have read 100,000 books on book meaning, on tarot meanings or card meanings,
mhm,
and then they begin to learn about correspondences, and they can begin to learn about the astrology of tarot, and they can begin to learn about Kabbalah and whatnot, and you can add as much as you want to it. But there is one issue that a lot of people have, that is, no matter how long you can speak about a single card, because you can make a whole thesis on a single card, they are perhaps not great at threading them together.
yeah.
And what the tableau is wonderful for is threading the cards together,
Mhm.
ceasing to see them as individual entities, and waving them
Yeah,
together in something that tells a story, that allows you to commit to an answer, and that also offers you substantiation for the story that you are creating
yeah.
within the same spread. And that is something that I believe gives a lot of confidence to people once that they try it.
Well, yeah, and it's just like it's so interesting to hear you say it this way because I think that like I love what you said about the intermediary reader. A lot of people will say
Mm.
that to me too, and then what they really mean is that like they have the theory of tarot, but they're too insecure for the actual practice of tarot. So they can read in the context of a class, but like for if they had to read for a friend or for themselves, this whole idea of storytelling, building the
Mhm.
story, it will just like, and it's really because and very much it is because they don't have a how do you call that? I want to say a laboratory to actually practice with a very practical exercise.
Mhm.
And I think from what I really got from your book is this, is that you like because of your way of teaching, I think is just it's so beautifully matter of fact and so practical. Like you can just like
Thank you. That's a lot of earth on my birth chart.
oh yeah. It's just so like, but really, it's just like, it's, like you build confidence by practice, and then the whole class, the whole book and the whole class, I'm sure, is going to be basically this. So, like, I feel like even though I'm like, like I am I like a Jedi of tarot? I don't think so. I don't think so.
Well, I beg to differ.
I'm always a novice, but I still know how to read cards. But like I learned so much from your book about my own way of reading card, my own traps, and some of the exercises you gave us were just super fascinating. It kind of really unlocked a lot of stuff. So I'm hoping that the people listening to this will feel enticed to take your class on Sunday. Anything you want to add before we say our goodbye?
Well, anything I want to add? First, I will be happy and delighted to meet anyone who wants to come. And if I will say that if you're, if you're on the fence because reading with a bunch of cards on the table is sort of daunting or intimidating in some capacity, we are going to begin building from a foundation. So I'm not going to just throw you to read a whole table of cards and pat you in the back. There is going to be a build up for that. And the idea of this is to build that kind of structure together so that you can gain that kind of confidence by the time we are done.
Mhm. Perfect. Well, my dear Maria, sorry, my dear Maria, I'm really excited about this. Thank you so much
So
for
am I.
taking the time to do this little talk. Hopefully, I'll get to take the class at some point, but maybe I will just reread your book. Will you show the book again, just so we get,
Yes,
people
the
want,
book is Tarot Tableau Revolution. If only for the cover,
yeah,
like
and
like right, it's like a
not only for
whatever.
the
But
cover
if
though.
only for the cover, it's a pretty book,
It's a
right?
pretty book, but
It's a pretty book.
it's delicious to read, It's really it's very
Like,
nutritive. It's no like it's not just like a candy. There is a lot of nutrient in this. Like it's a book filled with protein. It's like taro protein,
well,
very dense in such way.
I meant for it to be the kind of book that you don't just read, but that you work through. And in fact, nothing brings me more joy than when people sometimes publish or post pictures of their book and they have it all marked
Yeah.
and they have like the post-its and the book is dog-eared and I am like, yes, that's the point. So yeah, Tarot Revolution available wherever books are sold.
Perfect. Well, see you Sunday, Maria. Have a great rest of your day, and
You too.
everyone, sign up.
And see you Sunday, guys.
Bye bye.
Bye.